1.5 billion United States dollars. The number resists comprehension. It exceeds the gross domestic product of 27 nations. It is more currency than exists in the entire banking system of Jamaica. It is, by any measure, the largest theft in human history. And it was executed in less than 160 seconds. February 21st, 2025. 4:02 in the afternoon, Coordinated Universal Time. The message reached Ben Joe at his desk in Dubai. The caller was Bybit's chief financial officer. $1.5 billion. Gone. Not from a vault, not from an armored truck, but from a cold wallet, the digital equivalent of a bank vault buried a mile underground, the one asset that was never supposed to be accessible. This was not a glitch. This was not an error. This was a heist, and it had been 16 days in the making. Bybit is a cryptocurrency exchange that, at the time of the attack, held roughly $20 billion in customer assets and was the second largest exchange in the world by trading volume. Millions of users, thousands of transactions per second. Security here was not a feature, it was the product. Like most exchanges, Bybit protected its reserves with a multi-signature system. Instead of one person holding one key, multiple parties hold separate keys, and a transaction requires several signatures to execute. It's the same principle as a bank safety deposit box. 2 keys, 2 locks, 1 door. Bybit used a third-party platform for this. SafeWallet, formerly Gnosis Safe, used by some of the largest institutions in digital finance. Its code is publicly auditable. Its reputation was impeccable. The architecture was sound. The implementation was not. A single developer at SafeWallet held access to the infrastructure serving Bybit's multi-signature interface. Not a junior employee or contractor, but a senior engineer with clearance and access to the cloud environment hosting the code Bybit's security depended on. This developer was the target. The operation did not begin with code. It began with a conversation. The developer received a message that appeared to come from a credible party, a business opportunity, an investment deal, the kind of thing people in crypto discuss every day. Over days and weeks, the conversation built trust. Eventually, the developer was invited to a video call to finalize the arrangement. To join, the developer was asked to download a small video conferencing application. Nothing flagged by antivirus software, the kind of request made thousands of times a day across the tech industry. The developer clicked the link. The application installed. The call never happened. What installed instead was a remote access Trojan. It buried itself in the developer's workstation. No pop-ups, no slowdown, no detectable network traffic. It simply waited. That workstation had access to SafeWallet's Amazon Web Services infrastructure. The Trojan harvested session tokens and authentication cookies, digital keys generated after login that tell a server for hours or days that the browser is legitimate. No alarm was triggered. The attackers now had access to SafeWallet's cloud environment. They didn't rush, they mapped, they watched, they learned. The team's work schedule, the deployment calendar, the code review process, the staging environment. Every piece of operational intelligence was gathered and filed. The alignment was deliberate. The attackers worked the same Pacific time hours as the development team, logging off and on in sync with them. This was tradecraft. Anomalous off-hours activity triggers alerts, so there was none. This patience was not new. In 2013, the same group, the Lazarus Group, North Korea's state-sponsored threat actor, spent months inside Sony Pictures before striking. That operation, Dark Soul, was destructive and public. This one would be neither. It was designed not to destroy, but to extract. Extraction required precision. For 16 days, the attackers studied the code behind Bybit's transaction interface, identifying the exact JavaScript file that controlled what the signers would see. And then, on February 19, 2025, they deployed. They pushed a malicious update to Safe Wallet's content delivery network, altering the one file responsible for displaying transaction details. When a transaction was initiated, the script showed the signers exactly what they expected to see: a routine, benign transfer. Behind the interface, it sent entirely different instructions to the blockchain. The transaction the signers approved was a routine rebalancing to a warm wallet. The transaction the blockchain received was a transfer of every asset in the cold wallet to an address the attackers controlled. The signers saw the correct destination address, the correct amount, the correct smart contract. Everything looked exactly as it should. Everything was a lie. This is the blind signing problem. Hardware wallets have small screens and limited processing power. They can't parse every element of a complex smart contract interaction, so they display what they can, and the signer trusts what they can't see. The Bybit signers checked what was displayed. It matched. They approved. But the malicious JavaScript had rewritten the call entirely. It wasn't a transfer at all. It was a contract upgrade, handing the attackers ownership of the smart contract itself. Ownership of the vault. The signers approved. The blockchain executed. The vault emptied. The time between the first approval and the final transfer, 156 seconds. Inside Bybit's operations center, the breach wasn't immediately visible. The logs looked normal. It took a routine reconciliation against on-chain data to reveal the discrepancy. The warm wallet did not hold the funds. The cold wallet was empty. $1.5 billion had moved to an unknown address. Ben Joe did something unusual. He didn't hide. Within 30 minutes, he was live on social media, telling the world the exchange had been hacked, that withdrawals would remain open, and that Bybit would honor every customer balance even if the stolen funds were never recovered. Millions watched. Ethereum's price dropped 9%, Bitcoin fell 4%, and $75 billion in market value evaporated within hours. The real pressure hit the withdrawal system. In 12 hours, Bybit processed 350,000 withdrawal requests, more than the entire previous month combined. The system held, backed by emergency bridge loans from rival exchanges like Binance and BitGet. Even competitors understood that a Bybit collapse would damage the whole industry. While the financial world stabilized, the forensic investigation began. The Federal Bureau of Investigation moved fast. Within 6 days, it formally attributed the attack to the Lazarus Group, North Korea's Reconnaissance General Bureau, the unit that answers directly to the regime. Its announcement was unusually specific, listing wallet addresses, naming the malware, identifying the command infrastructure. It pointed unmistakably toward Pyongyang. The money, however, was already moving. The attackers had stolen 400,000 Ethereum tokens on a public, traceable blockchain. Moving $1.5 billion without being followed is, in some ways, harder than stealing it. The laundering operation unfolded in stages. First, conversion. Ethereum was swapped into Bitcoin and stablecoins through decentralized exchanges that require no identity verification. Second, dispersion. The funds were split across thousands of wallet addresses, each small enough to avoid monitoring thresholds. Third, obfuscation. The attackers used Tornado Cash to mix the funds and Thorchain to move them across blockchains, each hop breaking the trail. Finally, liquidation. Over-the-counter brokers, primarily in China, converted the assets into cash outside the regulated banking system, some knowingly, some not. The Bureau estimates roughly $200 million has been frozen as exchanges, law enforcement, and blockchain analytics firms race to blacklist addresses before conversion. The remaining $1.3 billion laundered through a network spanning 6 countries and 3 continents has likely already reached its destination. Which raises the question, where does $1.3 billion go when it enters the North Korean state apparatus? The Lazarus group doesn't steal for personal enrichment, it steals for the regime, funding the weapons of mass destruction program, ballistic missiles, nuclear warheads. The United Nations estimated North Korea's cyber operations generated about $2 billion total since 2016. This single heist nearly doubled that figure. A country that can't feed its own population without international aid has built the most profitable theft operation in history. The hack succeeded not because the adversary was unstoppable, but because the attack surface was human, a single developer, a single phishing message. The most sophisticated multi-signature architecture in digital finance was bypassed not by breaking the cryptography, but by getting signers to approve a contract they couldn't actually see. The vault door was not blown open. The signers were handed the keys and shown a picture of the wrong door. SafeWallet rebuilt its infrastructure. Bybit recovered. The industry added roughly $600 million to its collective security budgets and developed new standards for transaction verification. It did what it always does after a catastrophe. It adapted. But adaptation is reactive. The attackers are already studying the new defenses. They are already mapping the new infrastructure. They are already waiting. The funds have moved through the laundering network. They have been converted, dispersed, hidden, and liquidated. The missile program has its budget. The regime has its currency. The theft that took 156 seconds to execute will fund operations for years. This was not cybercrime. This was statecraft. The operation is complete.